Namo Buddhaya. Good evening. Welcome to the Buddha Dharma TV. I am Dr. Han Lim, joining you from Malaysia. As is our cherished traditions, we commence our Buddha Dharma TV programs by invoking blessings upon all beings across the universe, wishing them good health, happiness, and a serene environment for the daily life. The resonance of Buddhist chantings carries immense power, stemming from their origins as the sacred utterances of the Buddha himself. It is therefore imperative to incorporate these chants into our daily routines of our homes, fostering an environment, atmospheres of tranquility and harmony. Indeed, these potent chants possess the ability to dispel malevolent forces that may lurk within our household. Now, let us immerse ourselves in the first part of the Jaya Mangala Gatha, stanzas of joyous victory, chanted by Venerables Panamaya Susanga of Sri Lanka.
Bahung sahas mabenim mita sayudang tang girime kalang udita Sasin marang dana di dhamma videna jitva Tang tejasa bhavatu te Jaya Mangalani Maratireka Mabeyun Gita Sambarating Ghoram Pana Levakamak Matadha yak kang Khanti sudanta videna jitva Sa bhavatu te Jaya Mangala lani nalagiring gajawarang hatimat tebutang dawag gicak ke masaniwe sudaru nang tang mit tambusik videna jitwa muninda tang tejasa bhavatu te jaya mangalani ukit tekag mati hat sudaru nang tang dhawang tiyo janapatang guliman wantang indi bisang katemano jitwa munindo tang tejasa bhavatu te jaya mangalani
Our next item is from Dr. Bhikkhu Bodhi, who talk about roots of dispute and the principles of harmony. This is distressing the causes of our worries and pains. Dr. Bhikkhu Bodhi discusses them in a quite interesting way. Here is Dr. Bhikkhu Bodhi to talk about the topics of roots of disputes and the principles of harmony.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Okay, so today is December 2nd, 2023, and we can begin with the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened one. Sound is still good?
Yes, Bhante.
Yes,
Okay.
Bhante, it's good.
So now I'm going to share the screen as we move our way through these sixes. Okay, so I announced in the email that was sent out it said that we would be taking suttas number 11 and 12 today. These are suttas on the 6 principles of harmony and respect. But as I was reflecting on this particular teaching, I thought it would be good to take the teaching on the 6 principles of harmony and respect in conjunction with another sutta that I'll take first, which occurs a bit later in the Anguttara Nikaya. And this is a sutta on the 6 roots of dispute. And this is number 36 in the Anguttara Nikaya. Okay, so here the Buddha is speaking about 6 roots of disputes. And we find in the Majjhima Nikaya that the Buddha gave this discourse. He might have given it several times during the course of his career, but we see that in the Majjhima Nikaya, he gives this sutta in a period shortly preceding his Okay, yeah, I hit something by mistake. I didn't intend to hit that. Okay, so the Buddha gave this discourse shortly before his passing away. And what happened is that the leader of the Jain community, his name is in the Buddhist text, he's called the Niganta Nataputta. But to the Jains, he's known as the Jina, the conqueror, or Mahavira, the great hero. So according to the sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya, sutta number 104, Mahavira had passed away, and then the Jain community broke into 2 factions that were fighting with each other. And so Ananda came to the Buddha and said, Bhante, you are now old, and you're sort of in the last phase of your life, and it's just possible that when you pass away, Ananda said, I'm rather apprehensive that a conflict like that can break out in our own community, amongst the Buddhist community. And so in order to forestall that possibility, the Buddha laid down this teaching on these 6 roots of disputes. And I think these teachings, the principles that are laid down here, are applicable not only in ancient times and not only to the Buddhist community, not only to the ancient Buddhist community, but in general terms, that they would be applicable virtually to any community that is dependent upon, for its success, upon cohesion and harmony. And so what you have to do firstly is to watch out for the factors that create conflict and division. And then you have to find ways to deal with them before they break out into open conflict and disputes. And so the Buddha is here going to lay down 6 roots of disputes, but as you'll see that some of them actually join 2 factors together. So if you take them altogether, you could probably get up to, I think, 11 roots of dispute. Okay, so the first is that we have a monk who is angry and hostile. So here we have these are actually two factors that are a little bit different but interrelated. The initial stage is what is called anger, or kota is the Pali word. And then when kota becomes intensified, it turns into upanaha. Upanaha is what's translated here as hostility. So when anger builds up repeatedly, when it gains force in the mind, and it becomes something persistent, particularly when it's directed to a certain person or a certain group of people, then it becomes upanaha, hostility. And so here, when we have a monk who is angry and hostile, and then it says he dwells without respect and deference towards the teacher, that's the Buddha, towards the Dharma, and towards the Sangha, the community, and he doesn't fulfill the training. And so it's a monk like this, one who is overcome by anger and hostility, that creates a dispute in the Sangha, and then that dispute will lead to the harm of many people, to the unhappiness of many people, to the ruin, harm, and suffering of deities and human beings. And it's interesting that the text includes devas as well, because it seems that the devas also oversee, the devas are the deities, particularly I would say the deities, the Dharma protecting deities, dwelling in the lower realms, who oversee the vitality of the Buddha's teaching. And so when there's a dispute, the devas, when there's harmony in the Sangha, the devas rejoice. And when there's a dispute in the Sangha, then the devas, even the devas, become upset, troubled in mind. Perhaps there's even conflict among the devas that I don't know from personal experience. But the point here is that the vitality, the health, the strength of the Buddha's sasana, the Buddha's teaching in the world, depends upon the harmony of the Sangha, especially the monastic community that has the responsibility for preserving and transmitting the Dharma. And so when a monk becomes angry and hostile, then he'll have a tendency to start blaming other monks, criticizing them, ascribing faults to them, and maybe subtly trying to win by cajoling them and flattering some, winning others to his side, and in that way creating a faction. So that will lead to factional division. And when that occurs, then the Sangha starts to deteriorate. There's disputes and conflict, and people's trust in the Sangha and their trust in the Dharma is contingent upon seeing a harmonious Sangha. So it's said often in the text that people see the monks blending like milk and water, looking at each other with eyes of affection, with loving eyes. And when they see how the members of the Sangha are relating so harmoniously, then that generates trust and confidence and devotion towards the Sangha and towards the Dharma as the teaching proclaimed by the Sangha, and towards the Buddha as the one who is the source of that teaching. But if you see a community, monastic community, in which the monks are at odds with each other. And the suttas use a very poignant phrase. They say that when there's a conflict breaks out, they say that the monks are dwelling, wounding each other with the daggers of their tongues, the daggers of their mouth. So when that happens, then people's trust in the Sangha becomes shaken, and then they start to lose their trust in the Dharma and then even in the Buddha. Or maybe they retain the trust in the Buddha and in the Dhamma, but they start to lose their appreciation and devotion towards the Sangha. And so in this way, a dispute in the Sangha leads to the harm of many people, because the ability of people to practice the Dharma, to have that faith in the teaching and to undertake the practice of the teaching depends on seeing a harmonious Sangha. And so in this way, eventually, when you have, and then people will start, if they see conflict in the Sangha, then they'll start spreading bad reports about the Sangha, saying, well, if we could expect conflicts amongst us, ordinary lay people, but these monks are fighting with each other, they're no better than we are. What is the value of their renunciation and undertaking the training? It's not helping them improve beyond our level. And this way, eventually, it leads to ruin, harm, and suffering of both devas and human beings. And then the Buddha gives we call this a two-pronged piece of advice. So he says, if you perceive any such root of dispute, either in yourselves or in others. You see, the Buddha has this comprehensive mind. You should strive to abandon that evil root of dispute. So first you have to examine yourself to see, is that tendency taking shape in my own mind? You have to be very, very mindful, very attentive to see whether you are nourishing or nurturing or harboring these thoughts of anger, resentment, and hostility in yourself. And then if you see that tendency in yourself, then you have to abandon it within yourself. And that means by applying the appropriate method of training. And the Buddha gives various methods of training to overcome arisen thoughts of anger. Some of the methods include developing loving kindness towards the people towards whom you're harboring this ill will and anger and resentment, or forcefully, sometimes just recognizing that these thoughts are unwholesome and then trying to drop them, sometimes paying no attention to them, just letting those thoughts, observing them and just letting those thoughts arise and pass away. And sometimes even using a forceful method of driving them away through forceful application of energy. So you abandon that evil root of dispute in yourself, but also if you see that root of dispute starting to emerge in others, you see others becoming angry and hostile, others starting to speak in bitter ways or starting to foment division, then you have to find ways to deal with others who are trying to create a conflict. Sometimes in the initial stage, if you see one person doing this, you can take them aside and explain to them how it's destructive to themselves and to the harmony of the community if they harbor these thoughts. You have to try to encourage them to blend in with the community, to be willing to consider other points of view. So there are various methods to help others in the initial stage overcome those roots of dispute. But if you see others starting to form a faction, and then the conflict is starting to become truly divisive, then sometimes it's necessary to even convene a gathering, a meeting of the Sangha, and bring up the disputants and have ways to let them discuss their grievances openly, and then with a calm, peaceful, accepting mind, patient mind, try to understand their grievances, their complaints, their disagreements with the general trend, and then try to either to help them to get rid of those grievances, or maybe if they have valid grievances, to accept them and implement them. So in these ways, one could help to settle that dispute, and you quell the anger and hostility that arises, that might arise in others. Okay, but then if you don't see any such root of dispute, either in yourselves or in others, then you should practice in such a way that this evil root of dispute doesn't emerge in the future. So you have to take precautions against the arising of that anger and hostility, anger and ill will arising in the future. Okay, we can deal with the others more concisely. So the next root of dispute, and here we have two factors brought together. Probably there's some kind of underlying similarity between the two. Okay, one is that the monk is a denigrator, and the other is that he is insolent. Yeah, I had another file on let me just take these. Okay, it's not following my wishes. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I took the definition of these terms from one of the commentaries. Okay, so as for this term here translated as denigrator, maybe an alternative rendering would be contemptuous, being contemptuous. And the commentary gives examples both in the case of monastics and lay people. So it says, in regard that the meaning is that one disregards favors done towards oneself. So in the case of a layperson, if somebody is poor and then somebody out of compassion sets him up in a high position, later he disregards the favor done to him, thinking, what did he do for me? And then in the case of the monk, after one has become famous and respected, one disregards the instruction and guidance that one elders gave to one when you were a junior monk. Anyway, maybe this is too detailed. The general sense, mucky, is that the word literally means to smear. And so the idea here is that one is smearing others speaking badly about others, speaking derogatory words about others. And so in this way, one creates a conflict in the Sangha. And then the term with which it's paired, being insolent, or we could say presumptuous, this is one becomes a little bit sort of arrogant and yes, related to being contemptuous. You look down on others. So denigrating, you smear others and speak contemptuously about others. Being insolent means that you presume certain authority to yourself, certain good qualities to yourself, and on that basis you look down upon others. Okay, then the next pair are envy and miserliness. So envy, of course, is quite obvious, that when others have good qualities, then you resent their good qualities. When others achieve certain types of success, you resent their success. So the way this breaks out within the monastic community is that there might be one monk who is regarded very highly, maybe by the lay community. He gets a lot of respect and offerings. And then another monk does not receive the same degree of respect, does not receive the same amount of offerings. And so he looks over at the other monk, the one who's highly respected and venerated by the lay people, and then he becomes envious, and he doesn't only keep that envy within himself, but based on that envy, he might start spreading bad reports about the monk who is receiving the respect. For example, there's a famous story, it occurs in the sutta, occurs in the Sutta Nipata, later in the Anguttara Nikaya, I think in the Book of Tens, and in the Sangyutta Nikaya. We know that Sariputta and Moggallana were the two chief disciples of the Buddha, but there was another monk by the name of Kokaliya or Kokalika who was envious of Sariputta and Moggallana. And so he saw that the Buddha would often, he would usually, when he's sitting down at an alms offering or when giving a discourse, the Buddha has Sariputta on his right hand, Moggallana on the left hand, and Kokaliya is sitting way in the back, like a backbencher. And so Kokaliya was envious of Sariputta and Moggallana. So when he found the opportunity, he came to the Buddha and said, Bhante, even though you think so highly of Sariputta and Moggallana, but I know that they are bad monks with evil intentions, that they're really ambitious, and they've been flattering you and trying to weasel their way into your favor, but I see their conduct behind your back, and I know they're bad, evil monks with evil intentions. Then the Buddha reproached Kokali and said, don't speak in that way. Don't speak in that way. Sariputta, Moggallana, they are the most wonderful monks. You should have respect for them. You should have friendly feelings to them. You should place yourself under their guidance and learn from them. But Kokaliya continued to slander Sariputta and Moggallana. And as a result, because Sariputta and Moggallana had such power of paramis and merits from past lives, and slandering these noble ones is such a heavy, bad karma, that what happened, according to the sutta, is that soon after, these kind of boils appeared on the body of Kokaliya, and the boils became larger and larger until they burst open and a kind of pus started to flow from them. And then Kokaliya got seriously ill and he passed away, and he was reborn in one of the lowest hell realms. And then also, of course, Devadatta was also another monk who became envious of the Buddha himself and tried to create a division in the Sangha by winning the allegiance of about 500, according to the suttas, 500 young monks. He won over to his side, and he split from the Buddha and tried to establish his own Sangha with himself in the position of teacher. Okay, so there's envy as a ground of conflict, and then there's miserliness. You might think that the monks don't accumulate material wealth, but actually monks get offerings of robes, invitations to homes for alms offering, dwelling places, and various other requisites. And so some monk might be miserly in that he keeps all of these items to himself. He might get many robe offerings and just keeps them, and he sees other monks going around with old, worn-out robes, but doesn't want to share them with others, because he thinks, when I get an invitation to the houses, I will wear the brown robe. When I'm going an alms round, I could wear the orange robe. When I'm giving a sermon, I could wear the ochre robe. So he keeps many different colored robes without sharing them with others. And if he gets invitation to the houses, he doesn't like to suggest that he can bring other monks along. And so one could be quite miserly, and so that can create a division in the Sangha. Okay, then we have craftiness and hypocrisy. Okay, one of them, I'm not sure that I'm getting the order quite right. One of them, I think it's craftiness, means that one shows oneself as having virtues that one doesn't have. No, I think that is hypocrisy, is showing virtues that one doesn't have. And craftiness is covering up or concealing the faults that one does have. So those become potential roots of disputes. And then the fifth one is having evil desires. And this is particularly what is intended here is the desire for gain, that is for offerings from lay people, honor, to be placed in a position of honor. For example, in the Buddhist countries, there are special honorary titles that are given to monks, like Anunayakatero, Nayakatero, Anunayakatero, Mahanayakatero, and then sometimes they might have very long designations like Maha, Ratta, Sasana, Sobana, Maha, Guru, Nayakatero, a title like that. So a monk might have a kind of craving or desire for such honorary titles and honorary position, and desire for praise, to be praised. So it's basically the desire for gain, honor, and praise. And then there is wrong view. And what is meant in this context by wrong view, I think, is especially a view that denies the validity of the law of karma, that denies that karmic actions, volitional actions, produce fruits that accord with the nature of those actions. But there can be other types of wrong view too, like one of the famous ones that's recorded in the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta number 22. A monk named Arita was going around and proclaiming the view that there is no harm if a monastic indulges in sensual pleasures. And by sensual pleasures, what he means is sexual, according to the commentary, is sexual activity. And so he went about proclaiming that view, and then the monks heard about it, and they brought the Buddha. They informed the Buddha, and the Buddha called that monk to his presence and reproached him for proclaiming that wrong view. Okay, so we have evil desires and wrong view. And then the sixth stands on its own. And this is a very, very maybe dangerous type of attitude to take, and one which is very subtle. It's not as obvious and as gross as the other five. That is, we have somebody who adheres to his own views, holds to them tenaciously, and relinquishes them with difficulty. So this will hold within the Sangha, especially perhaps in relation to matters of vinaya, of observance, of monastic observance. So a monk might hold to his opinion about a certain rule of discipline, or it could be about a doctrinal teaching as well, hold to it very, very strongly, and even when presented with convincing contrary arguments, be unwilling to relinquish that view, or that just personal view. And this, I say that this can be a very subtle type of cause of division in the Sangha, because I've seen it very often in my own life as a monk, particularly in Sri Lanka, that you sometimes have some monks who, adopt this view, and it goes very contrary to the whole tenor of the Buddha's teachings, and you might bring, contrary arguments. You cite other sutta passages that sort of refute that view, and yet the more you present convincing arguments against the view of that monk, the more strongly he's going to hold to that view and say, I'm right, you're wrong. And then he might even go off and maybe try to draw others to his view. Okay, so those are the 6 roots of disputes, and then the rest of the sutta continues in the same way. And the Buddha, again, he says that you should practice so that this evil root of dispute doesn't emerge in the future, and such a way that it's abandoned and doesn't emerge in the future. Okay, so these are the 6 roots of dispute, and now sort of the positive counterpart. So these are the things that create disharmony and conflict within the Sangha. And now we want to go to the original teaching that I recommended for today's class, which is the counterpart to that, on how to establish harmony within the Sangha.
We have already given a brief introductions to Jataka stories. They are the recollection stories of a very few previous existences of the Buddha, who was then known as Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva means one who is striving hard to serve all beings selflessly. These stories are excellent sources of motivations that lead us to be on the right directions on our path of success. Please encourage your children and adults as well to read these stories and watch these programs. That will surely guide them in the right directions for the success. Now, here is Kosambiya Jataka story.
โกสัมพิยชาดก ชาดกว่าด้วยอยู่คนเดียวดีกว่าร่วมกับคนพาลในสมัยพุทธกาลเมื่อครั้งที่พระบรมศาสดาสัมมาสัมพุทธเจ้าทรงอาศัยเมืองโกสัมพีประทับอยู่ณโคสิตารามทรงปรารภเหล่าภิกษุที่ทะเลาะกันในเมืองโกสัมพีจึงตรัสเรื่องนี้คราวนั้นภิกษุ2 รูปคือพระวินัยทรและพระธรรมกถึกอยู่ในอาวาสเดียวกันวันหนึ่งพระธรรมกถึกถ่ายอุจจาระเหลือน้ำชำระไว้ในภาชนะแล้วก็ออกไป
ไม่ไหวแล้วไม่ไหวแล้วข้าศึกบุกมาประชิดประตูเมืองแล้ว
เมื่อพระธรรมกถึกไปแล้ว พระวินัยทรเข้าไปในที่นั้นทีหลัง เห็นมีน้ำเหลืออยู่ในภาชนะจึงออกมาถามพระธรรมกถึก
เฮ้ยค่อยโล่งหน่อย
เมื่อกี้ท่านปลดทุกข์แล้วเหลือน้ำไว้หรือ
ใช่แล้วข้าน่ะเหลือน้ำไว้
ท่านไม่รู้หรือว่าเป็นอาบัตินะ
พระธรรมกถึกไม่รู้ว่าการเหลือน้ำไว้ในภาชนะนั้นเป็นอาบัติด้วยตนเป็นพระนักเทศน์มิได้เชี่ยวชาญธรรมวินัยเหมือนพระวินัยทร
ถ้าเป็นอาบัติข้าก็จะปรงอาบัติ
ถ้าท่านทำไปโดยไม่ตั้งใจก็ไม่เป็นอาบัติหรอก
เมื่อพระวินัยทรบอกเช่นนั้นพระธรรมกถึกก็เข้าใจว่าอาบัติที่ตนทำนั้นไม่เป็นอาบัติส่วนพระวินัยทรเมื่อกลับไปแล้วก็ได้บอกเรื่องนี้แก่ศิษย์ของตน
พวกเจ้าอย่าเอาอย่างพระธรรมกถึกเชียวนะทำอาบัติแล้วยังไม่รู้ตัว
ใช้ไม่ได้จะมีใครเคร่งครัดในพระวินัยได้เหมือนอาจารย์ของพวกเราอีก
แหมแบบนี้มันต้องแซวกันหน่อยซะแล้ว
พวกศิษย์ของพระวินัยทรนั้นเมื่อเห็นพวกศิษย์ของพระธรรมกถึกผ่านมาก็พูดจาล้อเลียนเรื่องที่พระธรรมกถึกทำอาบัติ
อุปัชฌาย์ของพวกเจ้าทำอาบัติแล้วยังไม่รู้ว่าเป็นอาบัติ
พวกเจ้าก็อย่าทำอาบัติเหมือนอุปัชฌาย์ของพวกเจ้าล่ะ
น้อยเจ้าพวกนี้ดูถูกอุปัชฌาย์ของเราแบบนี้ยอมไม่ได้
พวกศิษย์ของพระธรรมกถึกได้ยินเช่นนั้นก็ไม่พอใจจึงพากันไปบอกแก่อุปัชฌาย์ของตน
อาจารย์พวกศิษย์พระธรรมวินัยเอาเรื่องที่ท่านทำอาบัติแล้วไม่รู้ตัวไปพูดนินทากันสนุกปากเลยละ
แบบนี้ยอมไม่ได้นะอาจารย์
พระวินัยทรจะเอายังไงกันแน่ตอนแรกบอกไม่อาบัติเพราะตอนนี้ว่าเป็นอาบัติ
เมื่อมีโอกาสเจอพวกศิษย์ของพระวินัยทรอีกฝ่ายพวกศิษย์ของพระธรรมกถึกก็พูดจาตอบโต้บ้าง
พวกเจ้าต้องศึกษาพระวินัยบ้างนะระวังจะเหมือนกับอุปัชฌาย์ที่อาบัติแล้วยังไม่รู้ตัว
พวกเจ้าก็เหมือนกันอย่าทำตัวแบบอุปัชฌาย์เจ้าที่เป็นคนพูดเท็จล่ะ
อย่ามาพูดพล่อยๆนะพวกเจ้ามาหาว่าอุปัชฌาย์พูดเท็จได้ยังไงกัน
ทำไมจะไม่ได้ตอนแรกบอกกับอุปัชฌาย์ข้าว่าไม่เป็นอาบัติแล้วกลับไปพูดกับพวกเจ้าว่าเป็นอาบัติได้ยังไง
ต่อแต่นั้นพระวินัยทรได้ช่องจึงทำอุกเขปนิยกรรมยกโทษในการไม่เห็นอาบัตินั้นตั้งแต่นั้นมาอุบาสกอุบาสิกาผู้ถวายปัจจัยแก่ภิกษุเหล่านั้นได้แบ่งเป็น2 พวกทั้งภิกษุณีผู้รับโอวาทก็ดีอารักขเทวดาก็ดีอากาสัตตทกเทวดาที่เคยเห็นเคยคบกับอารักขเทวดาก็ดีตลอดถึงพรหมโลกบรรดาที่เป็นปุถุชนได้แยกกันเป็น2 พวกได้เกิดโกลาหลไปถึงภพชั้นอกนิฏ
พวกเราอย่าไปทำบุญร่วมกับพวกนับถือภิกษุที่ทำอาบัตินะ
พวกข้าก็ไม่อยากทำบุญร่วมกับพวกนับถือภิกษุพูดเท็จเหมือนกันนั่นละ
เวลาต่อมาภิกษุรูปหนึ่งเข้าไปเฝ้าพระตถาคตเพื่อกราบทูลเรื่องความขัดแย้งของเหล่าภิกษุนั้นให้ทรงทราบ
ตอนนี้เกิดเรื่องใหญ่แล้วพระเจ้าค่ะภิกษุทั้งหลายได้แบ่งพรรคแบ่งพวกเป็น2 ฝ่ายแล้วพระเจ้าค่ะ
พระศาสดาได้ทรงทราบแล้วจึงทรงส่งภิกษุไปแจ้งพุทธดำรัสให้ภิกษุทั้งหลายสามัคคีกันแต่ก็ไม่เป็นผล
ภิกษุทั้งหลายพวกท่านจงสามัคคีกันเถิด
ข้าไม่สามัคคีกับพวกพูดเท็จหรอก
ข้าก็ไม่อยากดีด้วยกับพวกทำผิดพระวินัยหรอก
พระศาสดาทรงส่งภิกษุไปถึง2 ครั้งด้วยกันแต่ก็ไม่อาจทำให้เหล่าภิกษุนั้นสามัคคีกันได้ในครั้งที่3ทรงเสด็จไปยังสำนักของภิกษุเหล่านั้นตรัสโทษในการยกโทษของพวกภิกษุผู้ยกโทษและในการไม่เห็นอาบัติของพวกภิกษุเหล่านี้แล้วเสด็จหลีกไปพระศาสดาทรงบัญญัติวัดในโรงพัฏ ให้ภิกษุทั้งหลายพึงนั่งในอาสนะที่มีอาสนะอื่นขั้นในระหว่างแก่ภิกษุเหล่านั้นผู้ทำอุโบสถกรรมเป็นต้นในสีมาเดียวกันณโคสิตารามแต่ก็ยังเกิดปัญหาขัดแย้งระหว่างภิกษุอยู่เช่นเคยพระศาสดาจึงตรัสเตือนภิกษุทั้งหลายอย่าเลยภิกษุทั้งหลายอย่าร้าวรานกันเลยดูก่อนภิกษุทั้งหลายเรื่องเช่นนี้เคยมีมาแล้วในเมืองพาราณสีเมื่อตรัสดังนั้นแล้วพระศาสดาจึงทรงแสดงพระธรรมเทศนาดังนี้ในอดีตการพระนครพาราณสีได้มีพระเจ้ากาสีพระนามว่าพรหมทัตทรงเป็นกษัตริย์มั่งคั่งทั้งพระราชสมบัติและไพร่พลมากส่วนพระเจ้าโกศลพระนามทีคีติทรงเป็นกษัตริย์ขัดสนมีพระราชสมบัติน้อยและมีไพร่พลน้อยครั้งนั้นพระเจ้าพรหมทัตต้องการยึดราชสมบัติของพระเจ้าทีคีติเมื่อพระเจ้าทีคีติทรงทราบจึงหลบหนีออกจากพระนคร
พระเจ้าพรหมทัตยกทัพมาแล้วเราคงไม่อาจต้านทัพไว้ได้เมื่อเป็นเช่นนี้เรารีบหนีดีกว่า
พระเจ้าทีคีติและพระมเหสีเสด็จหนีออกจากพระนครไปยังพระนครพาราณสีทรงปลอมแปลงพระองค์มิให้ใครรู้จักทรงนุ่งห่มเยี่ยงปริภาชกครั้นต่อมาไม่นานพระมเหสีก็ทรงตั้งพระครรภ์และให้กำเนิดพระราชโอรสนามทีคาวุ
ทีคาวุกุมารลูกแม่เจ้าต้องมาลำบากต่างเมืองพร้อมกับพ่อแม่เพราะพระเจ้าพรหมทัตแท้ๆเลย
เมื่อทีคาวุราชกุมารเจริญวัยขึ้นพระเจ้าทีคีติทรงดำริให้พระราชกุมารหลบซ่อนตัวอยู่นอกพระนครด้วยเกรงพระเจ้าพรหมทัตจะส่งทหารมาเอาชีวิต
ลูกพ่อเจ้าจงหนีไปซ่อนตัวนอกนครเถิดหากพระเจ้าพรหมทัตส่งคนมาฆ่าเราเจ้าจะได้ปลอดภัย
ทีคาวุราชกุมารหลบอยู่นอกพระนครไม่นานนักก็ได้ศึกษาศิลปะสำเร็จทุกสาขาเมื่อทราบข่าวว่าพระบิดาและพระมารดาถูกจับแห่ประจานรอบเมืองก็คิดจะไปช่วย
เสด็จพ่อเสด็จแม่ข้าต้องช่วยพวกท่านให้ได้
ครั้นทีคาวุราชกุมารเข้าไปสู่พระนครพาราณสีก็ได้ทอดพระชนกพระชนนีถูกจับมัดอยู่จึงเดินรี่เข้าไปหาพระเจ้าทีคีติเห็นพระราชกุมารเสด็จพระดำเนินมาแต่ไกลก็ตรัสห้ามไว้ถึง3 ครั้ง
พ่อทีคาวุเจ้าอย่าเห็นแก่ยาวเจ้าอย่าเห็นแก่สั้นเวรทั้งหลายย่อมไม่ระงับเพราะเวรเลยแต่ย่อมระงับได้เพราะไม่จองเวร
เมื่อได้สติทีคาวุราชกุมารก็หลบหนีไปต่อมาพระราชกุมารได้ไปอาศัยอยู่ที่โรงช้างใกล้พระราชวังคืนหนึ่งขณะที่ทีคาวุราชกุมารทรงขับร้องและดีดพิณคลอเสียงเจ้ยแจ้วอยู่ที่โรงช้างพระเจ้าพรหมทัตได้ทรงสดับก็พอพระทัยรับสั่งให้ทหารเรียกตัวมาเข้าเฝ้า
เสียงเพลงนี้ช่างไพเราะยิ่งนักทหารจงนำตัวผู้เล่นเพลงนี้มาพบเราเดี๋ยวนี้
พระเจ้าพรหมทัตทรงพอพระทัยทีคาวุราชกุมารทรงแต่งตั้งทีคาวุราชกุมารในตำแหน่งผู้ไว้วางพระราชหฤทัยใกล้ชิดสนิทภายใน
เรารู้สึกถูกชะตากับเจ้ายิ่งนักต่อไปเจ้าจงมาอยู่รับใช้เราเถิด
เป็นพระมหากรุณาธิคุณพระเจ้าค่ะ
อยู่มาวันหนึ่งพระเจ้าพรหมเสด็จไปล่าเนื้อโดยทีคาวุราชกุมารเป็นผู้ขับราชรถครั้นถึงทางแยกหนึ่งทีคาวุราชกุมารก็ขับราชรถแยกจากขบวนตามเสด็จไปอีกทางหนึ่งแล้วจึงหยุดพัก
เจ้าจงหยุดก่อนเราเหนื่อยแล้วต้องการจะหยุดพัก
พระเจ้าพรหมทัตบรรทมอยู่บนตักของทีฆาวุราชกุมารครู่เดียวก็บรรทมหลับด้วยความเหนื่อยล้าขณะนั้นทีฆาวุราชกุมารคิดถึงความหลังที่พระเจ้าพรหมทัตปรงพระชนพระชนกพระชนนีจึงชักพระแสงขันออกจากฝักหมายจะล้างแค้น
เจ้าคนชั่วช้าหารู้ตัวไม่ว่ากำลังหลับอยู่บนตักของศัตรู ดีละวันนี้เรามีโอกาสล้างแค้นแล้ว
ก่อนที่ทีฆาวุราชกุมารจะลงมือสังหารพระเจ้าพรหมทัตนั้นทรงนึกถึงพระราชดำรัสของพระชนกจึงยั้งพระทัยไว้เป็นอยู่อย่างนั้นถึง3 ครั้ง
พ่อทีฆาวุเจ้าอย่าเห็นแก่ยาวเจ้าอย่าเห็นแก่สั้นเวรทั้งหลายย่อมไม่ระงับเพราะเวรเลยแต่ย่อมระงับได้เพราะไม่จองเวร
พระเจ้าพรหมทัตที่บรรทมหลับอยู่นั้นทรงสุบินว่าถูกทีฆาวุราชกุมารฝันด้วยพระแสงขันก็สะดุ้งตื่นและส่งเล่าความฝันให้ทีฆาวุราชกุมารฟัง
เราฝันว่าถูกโอรสของพระเจ้าทีคีติฟันด้วยพระแสงขันน่ากลัวจริง
ๆทันใดนั้นทีฆาวุราชกุมารจับพระเศียรของพระเจ้าพรหมทัตกาสิกราชด้วยพระหัตถ์ซ้ายชักพระแสงขันด้วยพระหัตถ์ขวาแล้วได้กล่าวคำขู่แก่พระเจ้าพรหมทัตกาสิกราช
ข้านี่แหละทีฆาวุราชกุมารโอรสของพระเจ้าทีคิติคนนั้นพระองค์ทรงก่อความชิบหายแก่พวกข้ามากมายนัก
พระเจ้าพรหมทัตกลัวถูกปรงพระชนจึงซบพระเศียรลงแทบยุคลบาทของทีฆาวุราชกุมารแล้วตรัสวิงวอนขอชีวิต
เราผิดไปแล้วอย่าฆ่าเราเลยไว้ชีวิตเราเถิด
หม่อมฉันไม่อาจเอื้อมหรอกพระเจ้าค่ะพระองค์ต่างหากควรไว้ชีวิตหม่อมฉัน
ถ้าเช่นนั้นน่ะเจ้าก็จงเอาชีวิตเราแล้วเราจะไว้ชีวิตเจ้า
ครั้งนั้นพระเจ้าพรหมทัตและทีฆาวุราชกุมารต่างได้ให้ชีวิตแก่กันและกันได้จับพระหัตถ์กันและสาบานว่าจะไม่ทำร้ายกันอีกต่อไปลำดับนั้นพระศาสดาได้ตรัสพระธรรมเทศนาจบจึงทรงให้โอวาทแก่ภิกษุเหล่านั้นดูก่อนภิกษุทั้งหลายขันติโสรัจจะเห็นปานนี้ได้มีแล้วแก่พระราชาเหล่านั้นผู้ถืออาทยาผู้ถือสัตราวุธก็การที่พวกเธอบวชในธรรมวินัยอันเรากล่าวดีแล้วอย่างนี้จะพึงอดทนและสงบเสงี่ยมนั้นก็จะพึงงามในธรรมวินัยนี้แน่พระศาสดาให้โอวาทถึง3 ครั้งแต่ภิกษุเหล่านั้นก็หาได้เลิกทะเลาะกันไม่พระผู้มีพระภาคทรงดำริว่าโมฆะบุรุษเหล่านี้หัวดื้อนักแลเราจะให้โมฆะบุรุษเหล่านี้เข้าใจกันทำไม่ได้ง่ายเลยดังนี้แล้วเสด็จลุกจากพระพุทธอาฏกลับไปครั้นเวลาเช้าหลังจากเสด็จบิณฑบาตในพระนครโกสัมพีแล้วก็เสด็จไปยังป่าริไลยกไพรสนประทับอยู่ณที่นั้นตลอด3 เดือนแล้วเสด็จไปเมืองสาวัตถีโดยไม่เสด็จมาเมืองโกสัมพีอีกพวกอุบาสกชาวเมืองโกสัมพีเห็นดังนั้นก็โทษภิกษุเหล่านั้นที่ทำให้พระผู้มีพระภาคเจ้าทรงไปเสียจึงร่วมกันไม่กราบไหว้และไม่ถวายบิณฑบาตแก่ภิกษุเหล่านั้น
ภิกษุเหล่านี้เนี่ยทำให้พระศาสดาระอาพระทัยจนจากเมืองของเราไป
ต่อไปพวกเราอย่าได้ไปกราบไหว้ภิกษุพวกนี้อีกนะ
พวกเราจะไม่ถวายบิณฑบาตด้วยทำแบบนี้ภิกษุเหล่านี้จะได้สำนึกเสียบ้าง
เมื่อภิกษุเหล่านั้นถูกพวกอุบาสกลงทันตกรรมเช่นนั้นจึงสำนึกได้พากันไปยังเมืองสาวัตถีกราบทูลขอขมาโทษต่อพระผู้มีพระภาคเจ้าพระศาสดาครั้นทรงนำพระธรรมเทศนานี้มาแล้วทรงประชุมชาดกว่าพระราชบิดาในครั้งนั้นได้มาเป็นพระเจ้าสุทโธทนะมหาราชในบัดนี้พระราชมารดาในครั้งนั้นได้มาเป็นพระมหามายาในบัดนี้ทีฆาวุกุมารในครั้งนั้นได้มาเป็นเราตถาคตชะนี้แหละ
Leh Ladakh is a northern region of India that recently became a union territory on 31st October 2019. It covering about 60,000 square miles, equivalent to about 100,000 square kilometers. It comprises 2 districts, Kagos and Leh, with a total population of approximately 300,000 people. This area is surrounded and divided by some of the world's highest mountain ranges. The Great Himalayan Range runs from northwest to southeast through Ladakh, separating the views of Kashmir from these regions. Here is Datuk Seri Dr. Victor V, the former president of the BGF and a frequent visitor to the regions, to talk about one of the most beautiful places in the world.
Welcome to Ladakh. It is the land of mountains, of monks and monasteries. The word La means passage, passes, mountain passes. And it has also been sometimes said to be a desert in the sky. So La is just a mountain pass. So Ladakh is a land of passes. Now, I have never heard of the word Ladakh until I went over to Bangkok one day for a function. And one monk that I met told me that, we have students in Ladakh who sings your songs, because I write songs. And I didn't know where Ladakh was. And when he says that it was the Himalayas, I was really amazed. And that monk was Venerable Nagasena, who happens to be the nephew of Venerable Sangasena. Okay, now, in Ladakh, it is actually located on the northwestern part of India. You see, Leh, which is the capital of Ladakh, is just north of Delhi. And the flight is about 1 hour, 20 minutes. And Ladakh falls onto the leeward side of the Himalayas, so it doesn't receive very much rain. The Himalayas are in the south. In the north will be Karakoram, and it leads to Pakistan. Right? Ladakh also shares boundaries with China, and you know that recently there has been some border disputes between China and India, and we hope that the issue will be resolved. This is called the line of actual control. So it is this part. The Aksai Chin is the disputed border area claimed by India but administered by China. So they still have not resolved these border issues. The other part that which creates some kind of issues with India and China is Arunachal Pradesh, and that is on the eastern side. I hope that these border issues will be resolved very quickly, just as China and Russia have already resolved their border issues, so that doesn't become an issue these days. Now, let us go on to the mountains first. One of the most amazing thing, if you get onto the flight from Delhi to Leh, and we like to get our flight early in the morning, you will actually begin to fly over the Himalayas. And so this is the scenery that you see. The glaciers on the mountain peaks. Is that amazing? And of course, one of the other amazing things is that when you descend in Leh, the airport itself is surrounded by mountains. So it is actually like descending. As you descend on the airport, it is like the plane have to go in circles to fly into a bowl. So you see the mountains just be in front of you, but then the plane goes just around. So it is actually quite amazing. Okay, here our host is Venerable Sangasena, and you know that he's wearing the robes. As Didi Jusing mentioned, he was a soldier before he became a monk. So he joined the Indian army at the age of 17, but he left the army to become a monk because of the spiritual calling. So he has left behind his weapons and instead have gone for compassion. He established what we call the Mahabodhi International Meditation Center in Leh, which is the capital of Ladakh. But for simplicity, let us use the word MIMC. That means Mahabodhi International Meditation Center. Now, this place, MIMC, is equipped with facilities to accommodate international guests. And because the air is much thinner, you're actually in the Himalayas, and the air, since the air is thinner, you really need to come down when you land up in Ladakh. Maybe 1 or 2 days, really, take it slow, move very slowly, take a lot of time sleeping. You don't even take a bath, don't even wash your hair, because that will sometimes cause mountain sickness. All right. So the lady in front that you see, her name is Datin Sri King Min Yue. She's very talented in the arts, and she's actually in the 70s. So when she said that she wanted to go over to MIMC to Ladakh, her children were terrified with the idea. They thought there's something terrible going to happen to her. And but she still persisted, and she came over to Ladakh and was returned back. Nothing, nothing went wrong. Yeah, because sometimes people think that in the mountains, strange things might happen to you. Now I showed this picture because these are the two boys from MIMC who came here to receive us. It was a delegation from MIMC to help us when we arrived at the airport. Now, when we say that Ladakh is in India, maybe you have some idea of how an Indian should look like. And these two faces do not strike you as very Indian looking, but actually they are Indians. And in terms of genetic makeup, they have the Burmese, Tibetan, genes. So that's how they look. And when you come to Ladakh, you will actually see the more authentic part of Tibet. Because if you go to Tibet in China, you see that Tibet has actually developed a lot of new structures, and you don't really get a feeling of what you think Tibet should be like. And also some children down here. Actually, the Ladakhis was considered to be like hillbillies by the rest of India, because in the 70s they were considered to be comical, ignorant country bumpkins. They were really poor, but they were happy because they didn't know anything better. But later on, with commercialization and all that, lives become too complicated, and that is when the Ladakhis begin to feel poor. Venerable Sangasena, actually, after he started the center in the IMIMC, he actually went out to meet up with families to encourage them to send their children to school. Many parents do not want their children to go to school, instead to help them in the farm. But those who are convinced just allowed the children to go over to Leh and to stay in this residential school. And of course, the lives of the children have really changed. So later on, I will just mention some of the success stories that you have at in MIMC. So when you see a monastery standing in this kind of barren landscape with a snow mountain at the back, this is in fact a picture of what Ladakh is all about. In India, people pray for rain. When in Ladakh, they pray for the glaciers or the snows to melt in order to provide them with drinking water and agriculture. So the melting snow from the glaciers are really quite important to them. So with this global warming and climate change, it will in fact affect the Ladakhis if the melting of the glaciers happen too fast, because they need the water for survival. You can see the landscape is really dry. Yeah. Here you have a monk walking past a fluttering flags towards a chotan. A chotan is really a stupa, and that symbolizes the mind of the Buddha. And it also represents a process of practice and transformation to gain enlightenment. So in Tibetan Buddhism, they call this a chotan. In Sri Lanka, they call it a stupa. In Myanmar, a taitya. In China, they call it a pagoda. Here is you see this this is Om Mani Padme Hum. So when Buddhism came to Ladakh, it came via Kashmir in the 2nd century. So Buddhism has been in Ladakh for about 2,000 years, but of course for Tibetan Buddhism, it's about 1,000 years. And then Kashmir itself was a flourishing center for Buddhism before it became Muslim. And the words here you see as Om Mani Padme Hum is dedicated to Avalokiteshvara or Kuan Yin. And you see this everywhere. Om Mani Padme Hum. All right, here you'll see two symbols down here. One symbol is a drum, right? It's an umbrella. It's an umbrella. Umbrella is a sign of protection, and on the right is the vase for treasures, which represents prosperity. This happens to be the rooftop of the Hermes Monastery This is the center of the Drukpa sect of Tibetan Buddhism. And I was actually attracted by the landscape at the back, because you could see that these looks like sedentary rocks, and as if it has been pushed aside. And indeed, Ladakh used to be at the bottom of the sea. And as a result of the movement of the continental plates, it has been pushed up from the bottom of the sea. Now it becomes the Himalayas, the mountains. All right, I mentioned about the Karakoram Highway. In our journey, we have to drive on mountain rocks and mountain passes. And here you could see that the rocks are black in color. That is because this is Karakoram. Kara means black, Koram means gravel, black gravel. So sometimes we have to take mountain passes like this, which is really quite amazing. And of course, the height of these mountain passes where the vehicle is traveling is a few thousand feet above the top of Mount Kinabalu. So Malaysia, we think, oh, Mount Kinabalu is so, so high, is our highest mountain. But in Ladakh, Mount Kinabalu is the starting point. And after that, you go higher. All right. And as we begin to go higher, and of course, the air gets thinner and the head gets lighter. And sometimes when you walk, you feel like you're giddy, you feel as if you're intoxicated, and breathing becomes labored. So every time when you take a few steps, you have to stop and pant because you feel breathless after every few steps. But what amazes me was you see cyclists cycling up the mountain. Wow, it's amazing, because for us, even to walk is, you have to put quite a bit of effort. In the Ladakh itself, there are a few passes. The highest motorable pass in the world, that means a pass that you can drive through, is called Kadong La. La, as you know, means pass. It's a pass of Kadong. And we have to pass through this Kadong La pass to the other side, to Nubra Valley. And that is, and when you do that, you get a panoramic view of the Karakoram Mountains. And if you go slightly beyond that, you actually see Pakistan. All right. Now, this Kadong La Pass is 18,383 feet. So we will normally stop at Kadong La Pass, Kadong La, and just for kind of a toilet break. And when you get out of the car, you feel, oh, I'm a bit giddy already. But sometimes you have snow. So some of our participants will run and play with the snow and all that. Some others, after walking to the toilet, they come back to the car and just sleep, because the head would be spinning. The air is thin. So different people will respond to the thin air slightly differently. So at 18,000 feet, you're actually 5 kilometers above the sea. And also 5,000 feet above Mount Kinabalu. Isn't that amazing? So this is the highest point that we passed using a vehicle. But the stamina of the cyclist is quite incredible. But sometimes people who are in the mountains, when they go down to lowlands, they go to the sea level, that's when they get sick. They're not used to the kind of air pressure that we receive. But when you go up to the mountains, we need to get adjusted. But after a few days, you get adjusted, actually. Your body will start producing hemoglobins, and you become more efficient in getting the oxygen in the air. And actually, when you come down from Ladakh, you actually become younger. You got much more oxygen in your body. So that's the secret of youth. You go to Ladakh and you become young. Okay, so we also have to pass through gorges like this. Can you see? It's incredible, isn't it? It's a gorge. And landslides sometimes happen in the mountains. So sometimes when you travel, your journey itself might be delayed slightly because of a landslide. But don't worry, if you travel in the road on the road in the afternoon, you wouldn't have rocks falling on you, because the landslide normally occur in the very early morning because of the very cold temperature and expansion and contraction. That is when you have a landslide. Okay, so you will see sometimes the gorges are almost vertical, and the river runs through the valley. Okay? This river will later join the Indus River. You see a little bit of river down there. So this is a scenery that we don't ever see in Malaysia. It's just amazing, isn't it? I must also mention that the roads in Ladakh are being maintained by the Indian Army simply because of the border issues with China. So they must make sure that in case of trouble, the soldiers can get to the border area as quickly as possible. So the roads are fairly well maintained. Yeah. And we have been seeing a lot of pictures of mountains, but sometimes in between the mountains, you have valleys. And when you have valleys, sometimes a small river will flow to the valley, bringing the water from the melting snow and glaciers. And then in this valley, it becomes really green, fertile. And this valley is called Tinsmagang. This is the home village of Venerable Sangasena. It's a beautiful valley. It is also called a valley of the apricots. So you get beautiful apricots. Dr. Charlie was mentioning about when to go for fruits. That is, Dr. Charlie, that's also my favorite time, going to Ladakh, because we actually want to eat the apricots straight from the tree. And you also get different varieties of apples as well. So we like to go in late summer or early autumn. This is where the apples will ripen. The walnuts and the apricots are there, but walnuts comes a bit later. Normally we try to aim for the apricots. Okay, and you see a picture of a building here. This is actually the hotel that we stay in. Okay, beautiful valley. All right. Okay, here you have apples. So in Ladakh there is an abundance of various types of apples, because here in Malaysia we just go to the supermarket and we just get certain types of varieties of apple. But in Ladakh, every tree is different, right? Sometimes you have one tree and the next tree, the apples taste will be different. Sometimes in one tree, they might give the sweetest, the crunchiest apple that you ever tasted. It is so fantastic. And then you pluck the apple from the next tree, it's mushy, it's flat tasting, it doesn't taste good. So you know that after people have tried apples on the tree, you know which tree they go for, the tree with the best apples. And the same thing could also be said about apricots as well, because different trees will give different tasting apricots. And the hotel that we stay in Tingsmagang, there are some very good apricot trees. After the apricots has fallen, they make jams for that. But this is what happens, apricots. This is a grandma. She's 93 years old. She's the auntie of Venerable Sangasena. She's drying apricots in the sun. Apricots last on the tree for about 2 weeks. So if you're too early, apricots have not ripened. You come too late, the apricots are all fallen from the trees. Okay, so the timing needs to be right, and sometimes it's difficult because sometimes the summer could come a bit early or come a bit later. And the apricots are also used to make apricot jam. They're excellent apricot jam from the hotel that we stay. Yeah. This is what you see, a shorten in the highway. And so we are on our journey to Pangong Lake. Pangong Lake became very famous because in the final scene of the movie called The Three Idiots, Hindustani movie, it's a very funny movie, won awards. It's a very good movie. But the last part of the movie shows you the Pangong Lake, and the Pangong Lake is really quite fantastic, so beautiful. And so we were traveling on this road to Pangong Lake, and it's very common to see shortens like this. Yeah. And this shorten is sometimes these are religious symbols to bring blessings to people traveling on this road. Sometimes places where accidents normally occur, they will also put a shorten down there in order to bring blessings. And because the elevation is about 4,000 to 5,000 meters, you will also see many low-lying clouds. So sometimes you'll be completely covered in clouds. Can you see how low the clouds are here? Yeah, these are the goats, because we are now in the Chantang area. Chantang is about 16,000 feet above sea level. That is about 3,000 feet above Mount Kinabalu. So it's really high elevation. And this is the best place for this type of goats, right? This kind of shaggy goat. These goats have two coats of hair. The outer coat is the coarser coat. That is really for summer. When winter approach, they will have an undercoat, a soft down. So the soft down itself could actually be used for warm clothing. They're very soft and light. And in fact, they are being used to make cashmere textile. In fact, the cashmere textiles are selling in New York or Paris, where it can cost you thousands of dollars, will come from farms like this. And these goats are thoroughbred. So it is possible for you to trace who are the parents of this goat. who are the grandparents of this goat, who are the great grandparents of this goat, so that they keep track of the family lineage in order to get the best fiber from the goats itself. But of course, the farmer is very, very tough life. It is high in the mountains, very arid. Winter is extremely cold, and they don't get very much from this fiber. But then, by the time it goes down and land up in Paris and New York, the cashmere become extremely expensive. The child that I sponsored actually come from a place like this, coming from this area of Chantang. Here, for photographers, actually going to Ladakh is one of the amazing sights, especially in the mountains. Can you see the mountain lights are quite amazing? You have these low-lying clouds, and you've got a burst of sunshine on one side of the hills. This is not the kind of light that you get in lowland. Now, we don't normally see this kind of light when you go in a group, because sometimes you make sure that you reach the hotel when the sun is down, just ready for dinner. The reason why I was able to see some of these mountain lights was because our journey here was a bit delayed, because we had to wait for our permits, because as you go to the Pangong Lake, this is a restricted area, so you need the permit, and we had to wait for the permits and our passports to come, and therefore we started the journey a bit late. And therefore the good thing is that as the sun was setting, you begin to get you are able to see the evening lights, which is amazing, very beautiful. This is the Pangong Lake itself. Just as the sun is setting, and we see, wow, this scene is fantastic. This is maybe like a scenery from the Lord of the Rings. And if you look closely, you could actually see there is a little bit of a monastery down here. A chotan. It's not really a monastery, very small structure. And so in this Pangong Lake, which is on eastern side of Ladakh, 40% of this lake lies in India and 60% in Tibet, China. And recently there's a skirmish along this lake. The lake lies on the line of actual control. And so sometimes in the mountain pass, boundary borders are not wholly defined, and the rivers keep changing courses, so sometimes it is difficult to know where the border lies. In winter, the waters will freeze, so it is possible for you to travel from the Indian side of the Pangong Lake to the Chinese side. Yeah. And this is another scenery of Pangong Lake in the evening. The water becomes blue, very deep blue. Sometimes the color can change to green or to red. Right, so the colors itself can change, many colors on this Pangong Lake. This is Pangong Lake during the day, and I was sitting on a rock and trying to be like a Guruji sitting on a rock, but you could see that the waters of this lake is beautiful. It's clear water, and this lake itself is a hidden gem. As I mentioned, that this was used as a site for the Hindustani blockbuster, The Three Idiots. Check it out. I'm sure you'll enjoy this movie, The Three Idiots. And the beauty of the colors makes you really wonder, is this place real? Or is it just camera tricks? And as a result of this movie, The Three Idiots, many Indian tourists now come over to the Pangong Lake. So this has now become a tourist attraction. And this is another part of the evening lights, mountain lights. Here you have the setting sun lighting up the scenery in gold, and it gets reflected in the water. Amazing, isn't it? Mountain lights. Okay, so that is the mountainside. Actually, I have so many pictures, but I have to make sure that I don't put too many pictures. Otherwise, by the time I give the presentation, half the crowd would have actually left. So I have to select the pictures, but there are many amazing pictures of Ladakh. Let us move on to the next section, which is on monks. Okay, these are the monks. So Ladakh has remained secluded from the rest of the world. The rural areas are inaccessible. It's mountainous, it's remote, it's isolated. And they are cut off actually from the rest of India between 6 to 7 months because of the wintry climate in the high mountains. And so what the families would do is they like to sit around. The kitchen is the best place in the house because the stove is always on. So you get warm and you can drink butter tea. You can eat roasted barley and cakes and maybe take a nap on the low bunches. Yeah, so the kitchen is the best place. So the Ladakhis are really the Tibeto-Burma, and some of them are the Indo-Aryan descent as you move closer to Pakistan and Kashmir and Pakistan. And their culture has been strongly influenced by Tibetan Buddhism. So in the past, it was very common for a family to have 1 or 2 sons to become a monk in a monastery. And every house will have a shrine upstairs for them to do their puja. So having sons as monks means that you actually have less mouth to feed. And the other thing is the boys will learn how to read and write, which is part of monastic training, which is good for the boys. So whether or not they want to remain as monks or return back to lay life, at least they know how to read and write. And you can see how beautiful the murals are. So every temple will have murals like this. This is Venerable Sangasena. He was the founder of Mahabodhi International Meditation Center. And but MIMC is not only a meditation center in Leh. This is really an amazing project that has transformed. It is 250 acres of deserted or barren land. And Venerable Sangasena used to say that not even a grass will grow here. It is just absolutely dry. It's a desert. But he was given 250 acres. And so he wanted to build a campus for learning for children, especially children from underprivileged families. So he established a campus. He has residential schools here. Besides a school in Leh, there are also Mahabodhi branch schools in 2 other villages. And he has also a school for the blind and visually impaired students. There is a hospital, a home for poor folks, old folks, those who cannot walk or work anymore. And besides that, there are also guest houses for visitors, and where you have a twin sharing room with attached bathroom. So we are quite comfortable. So we stay in these guest rooms. There is hot water. And the income that is received from the visitors help to provide the income to sustain the campus. So it's a good idea for us to go to Ladakh one day, because by so doing, not only do we experience something completely different, we also have a chance to support MIMC. Okay, because you know your accommodation and food and all that, your expenses becomes income for them. So he joined the Indian Army when he was 17. Because that was the in thing to do. He was very impressed with the uniform that the army uses. So he was attracted by the uniform. And actually at 17 years old, he was just 1 year younger than the 18, which is the required age. But he managed to look at the recruiting officer in the eye and convince him that he's able to do what other people are doing. Yeah. Actually in Ladakh, there was nothing else that he can actually do except to join the army. So that was a very glamorous thing for him to do. He was the youngest in the platoon, but he was the most outstanding also. So one day what happens is that he has a relative by the name of Bhikkhu Ananda. He became a monk at Mahabodhi Society in Bangalore. And he spoke to Venerable Sangasena about the value of compassion in the monastic life. After talking to his relative, he realized that what is he doing with his life? Why does he want to become a soldier? So at that time, he actually decided to become a monk. So he became a monk at the age of 21. From 17 was joined the army. 21, he became a monk in Bangalore. Again, this is the background is in the monastery. Tibetan monastery. Okay, so Venerable Sangasena here was giving a talk and was leading chanting. Actually, Venerable has got a lovely musical voice. He's got a good sense of humor, and he delivers his words of wisdom with so much modesty. Here we are having some kind of chanting just outside. This young monk that is looking at Venerable Sangasena is Bante's nephew. His name is Jinananda. He's the administrator at MIMC. I thought this picture is really quite nice. The way he looks at Venerable Sangasena. His elder brother is also a monk. His name is Venerable Nagasena. He was the one who introduced to me the idea of Ladakh. He said, in our schools, we are singing the songs that you write. And I was so amazed, like, where is Ladakh?
Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. I am blooming as a flower. I am fresh as a dew. I am solid as a mountain. I am firm as the earth. I am free. Breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. I am water reflecting what is real, what is true, and I feel there is space deep inside of me. I am free, I am free, I am free.
Well, that's all for today. If you have any concerns or questions, please write to us at info@buddhadharmatv.com. Thank you for watching the programs, and I'm sure that many would benefit from Buddha Dharma TV programs. See you tomorrow. Good night. Namo Buddhaya.